For those of you who don't know me, my name is Cindy Gueli. I am president of AOI this year, and we're so happy to have all of you guests as well as visitors here. We have a brief meeting that we're going to go through, and then we will have our presentation and our speaker. A recording of our February meeting, which has Pat Tyson and Teresa Saxton and the panel of alumni from the Military Road School that talked about the history of the school as well as the Preservation Trust. That is available on our website, and that is available on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. So if you missed it, you can go watch it there. And that is also going to be kept as our record, our official record for that meeting. We do have some new members that we're going to be voting in. So I'm going to turn it over to John, who will tell us a little bit about 3 new members that we have this month.
Okay, does this work? It does work. So we have 3 new members. The first, Rose Harper, that was recommended to us through Pat Tyson. She's a Military Road School alum and was on the panel at our last meeting last month. Second, James Kennedy, that came to us through Ginny Messeur and is a 3rd-generation Washingtonian. I'm not sure if any of these people are here, or if they're here.
I don't think they are.
Hold their hands? Okay, they're not here. And then the last, Patricia Hewitt Santana, has an interesting story. Her great-great-grandfather, Joseph Goldsboro Brugge, I'm butchering that name, was one of the first AOI members. And at one of the earliest AOI meetings, he apparently brought a tree root from an old tree that was cut down to build the Treasury building next to the White House. And his portrait hangs in the Treasury Department to this day. So, interesting history here. So, shall we get a vote of acclamation to welcome and induct our 3 new members? All in favor? I think that passes. We have 3 new members.
We have 3 new members. All right, thank you. And now I'm curious as to where the tree is. Are we all wondering where that tree, I'm sure it was planted somewhere and has maybe a plaque on it somewhere. Yes, you're right. You're right. Does anybody have a tree from that? You let us know. We'll find another place to plant that. We have, most of you have, and I think most of the people that I see in the room have renewed. If anybody hasn't, we have about 70 people who have yet to renew for 2026. You can do so online. You can do so here at the lunches. You can mail in your renewal, or you can do it right now if you want to. We'll run to you with a credit card swipe. You can do it. So if you haven't, please do renew. We're having a pretty good success rate of renewal. So thank you for those who already have renewed. Speaking of emails, because you can always email us if you have not renewed, and if you are not sure if you've renewed or not, go ahead and send us an email. We are trying to get a handle on some emails that work and some emails that don't. So if I could ask for a show of hands of anybody who did not get an email invitation to this lunch from me. Is there anybody who showed up? You did not. Okay. That's it? Wow. Oh, 2. Okay, come see me, please, and make sure, or email us and tell us, and make sure that we have it. Some of them are bouncing back. Some of them we might have typed in wrong, and some of them just may not be accepting our emails. So we want to make sure that you get them. You should get not an alarming number of emails from us each month, but you should get a lot of reminders from us. So if you do not see those, please make sure you let us know. You also got an email, hopefully, most of you, about ranked choice voting from the Committee of 100. There was a webinar yesterday to invite AOI members to hear about and try to understand that for upcoming elections. Anybody not get an email about ranked choice voting? You don't think you did? Okay. Okay, if anybody who did not, please talk to John Edwards, our vice president who was just talking about new members. We have 2 different email lists, and I want to make sure that everybody is getting all of them. And if you missed that, I believe that there should be a video for that. So we will send out a link for that so you can watch the video, so you can start getting familiar with that process and what that's going to be. I'm sorry, I forgot that because I don't live in D.C., so I'm forgetting myself. Yes, for D.C. residents only. I'm sorry. The ranked choice voting is only going to be within D.C. elections. So if confused, email us and we'll send you the link and let you know if you have to worry about it or not if you're in upcoming elections. Because we want to make sure you're voting and we want to make sure you're informed when you're voting. Do not forget, we do have a skip the line option when you do RSVP for lunches. You can go ahead, pay online, and your name tag and your lunch choice will be waiting for you. You don't even have to talk to us. You just come in, you grab it, you sit down. So that is always an option, and that is what it looks like. You'll see on our website, news, skip the line. So you can go find it on our website when you decide that you want to pay for lunch. We have a scanner in the back. Thank you. We have a scanner in the back starting this lunch. I don't believe anybody brought anything to scan. If you did, let me know and we can make sure that happens before lunch is over. But we are having that available at every lunch from now on. If you have photos, documents, any slides, memorabilia, negatives that you want to preserve. We are making a big push to help you preserve your memories and also in connection to that DC memories. Bring it in, we will help you scan it, and we will send you home with a digital copy. You don't have to worry about copyrights. We're not going to keep a copy of it. It is going to be yours to take home. We will give you a thumb drive so that you will have that when you go home. And you will be able to preserve that for all time or until the technology changes. But at least we will get you to the next generation. So if you do have any questions, you can also let us know, but also you can just bring it in and we can help you figure that out at each lunch. So we will be in the back by the check-in desk for anything that you want to bring in. And so let us know if you decide you're going to bring in like a congressional report that's 700 pages. We're not doing that before lunch, but we'll help you figure out how to get that done as well. Don't forget that we are now on SoundCloud with our podcast. Right now we have previous speakers. You can hear their presentations from the past on that, but we are also going to be doing interviews with members, interviews with authors, archivists, journalists, and as well as with little brief memories, hopefully, that you will be contributing. This year, especially, bicentennial memories. If you were here during in 1976 and want to tell us you were. Okay, so Nina just volunteered to be first, and Loretta and Jean. Okay, yep, we got them all. Okay, so you're all volunteering. I will be in touch with a microphone, and even if it's just a few thoughts, a few memories, we want to make sure that we're capturing, what people remember that is kind of beyond the newspapers and beyond the written reports of the bicentennial. Bicentennial and also 9/11. Because we are now coming up on the 25th anniversary of 9/11, which Chip has just generously donated his time to give us his memories of where he was on 9/11.
Was right down there.
No, this is how you get volunteered for it. No, thank you, absolutely. So if you are willing, we would love to talk to you and get a. Well, Bill's going to walk right over at some point and with the microphone. Bill and Pat, we will get your memories. But we would also love all of yours, even if it's just, a 2-minute, this is where I was, this is what I remember, and I can't believe it's been 25 years. We do want to capture that because those are memories that will not only fade, but in another year that we commemorate it, which will be probably 25 years after that, those memories are probably going to be buried. somewhere. So we want to make sure we capture that from all times. So you will see me coming around with one of those little influencer microphones and my phone to even just get a few snippets during lunches. So please, if you're interested in doing something longer, let me know. If not, either put up your hands and say no, I'm not doing it. But otherwise, feel free to. That's what I'm going to be coming around to ask you to talk about. Yes.
What is SoundCloud? I'm sorry.
SoundCloud is a hosting site for podcasts. So you can go to soundcloud.com. You can get through our web. You can get it through our website as well. You can link it. We have a link to it, and you can just go to it. But it is a hosting site. You don't. It's all free.
Do something, just click the X button. Just everything's there. You just pick what you want to listen to and listen.
So he's saying you just pick what you want to listen to, and you listen to it. You can get there from our website, and it's all for free. So if you want to go back and listen, you can. So if in doubt, our website, and if still in doubt, email us, and we'll get you the link, and we'll get you there for it. We are also on social media. These are all the places we are at the moment. We're on YouTube, Blue Sky, LinkedIn. We are on Instagram. We are on Threads. So wherever you get your social media, come find us. You'll probably see a photograph of yourself because we are posting pictures. We make sure they look great, by the way. You all look great on our social media. If you did follow us, you would probably see the notice that we recently put up about our board member, Kim Bender. Kim Bender, who was the executive director at Heinrich House for about a decade, has moved on from the Heinrich House. She is now executive director of the American Institute of Architects, D.C. chapter, and the Architecture Center, the D.C. Architecture Center. So we congratulated her. Hopefully we will hear more and be doing maybe some connecting programs with her and with them as we go forward. So we have announcements like that as well as upcoming speakers and other fun tidbits. So take a look for us wherever you find your social media. That's coming. It also will tell you that AOI is going to be trying to advocate for changes that we don't necessarily see as good in our DC's built environment, as well as other items going around town. So you will see some notices for advocacy because we would like to lend messages of support, letters of support, possibly amicus briefs to some of the legal battles that have been going on around town. We've talked previously about the ballroom, the golf course, the Kennedy Center, the park, the EEO, the old Eisenhower Executive Office building, and all of the battles that are going on to try to preserve what is currently iconic Washington.
And to prevent the arch.
And to try to prevent the arch, which apparently...
There's a lawsuit and there are petitions you can sign, so
And
keep it up.
that was one of my announcements. So please let us know when there are petitions to sign. Let us know when there is action that can be taken, because we would like to let you know through our social media. And if anybody would like to get involved, we do have a very active group, and I think anybody who is passionate about it and wants to lend their name, we want to make sure that they know where they can do that. Oftentimes, we're not exactly sure where to start and what exactly we can do. So if you have information, please let us know.
One of my neighbors will give it to me and I'll pass it on.
Please do. Okay, thank you. AOI did write a letter on behalf of a name change in D.C., and that was to change the name of Brent Elementary School on Capitol Hill. Brent Elementary was named after Robert Brent, who was D.C.'s first mayor. He was also the uncle of John Carroll Brent, who was an AOI member and founding member and our first corresponding secretary. And we did a little talk about him a few lunches ago. He also was a white supremacist. He was pro-slavery, and he was not our Brent. Well, we don't think at the moment our Brent, but Robert Brent. And he was a proponent of the black codes that were instituted in D.C. So the name is, there's been a petition to change the name. There's been legislation that has been introduced. And they are planning to change the name to the Gardner Bishop Elementary School. And that is named after a D.C. civil rights activist who helped to integrate D.C. public schools. So our board member, Tim Hannibal, who is a lawyer, wrote drafted a letter on our behalf, and we submitted that on behalf of AOI. Yay. That is available on our website. I always look to Bill when I say our website, because he is our webmaster and puts all things up there. So that is available if you would like to read a copy of that as well. He did a fabulous job, and there's a lot of DC history in it as well. So those are the types of things that if you know about, please let us know about. So that we can be involved. We've been talking a little bit about AOI's own history in the past year, and we're going to continue to do a little bit of glimpsing into our past, not only the founders, but at the brunch we talked about how AOI was an outgrowth of the Civil War era and the Reconstruction era in Washington. So today I thought it would be interesting to take a look at where AOI gathered over the years, because that also had an impact on AOI's identity going forward. In 1865, between 1865 and 1886, AOI did not have a permanent home. It met in a number of places, including all of these. The idea for AOI seems to have been born at 9th and D in what was a Masonic Lodge and became a movie theater, and then also was officially formed in City Hall in 1865. So meetings were held at everywhere from the Willard Hotel, Willard Hall, Nicholas Kalin's house, who was our first treasurer. That's his house on the left, and including the Corcoran Building on 15th Street. So in 1886, William Corcoran, the banker William Corcoran, who was also an AOI member, let AOI have a room in the Corcoran Building. This is now where the Hotel Washington stands, on the corner of F and 15th Street, for rent-free forever. So AOI was able to meet there up until the time that we started to outgrow the one room that had been available to AOI. So about 1908, AOI started looking around for someplace else to meet. And they managed to find a place in 1911. They officially moved into the old Union Engine Company, which was at 19th and K. How do we get to a firehouse? Because AOI is very much connected to firehouses and DC firemen's history. A few years before that, in 1907, AOI decided to allow the Veterans Volunteer Firemen's Association members become AOI members, associate members as well. Those ranks were dwindling. These were a group of men who mostly worked as firemen before 1864, when DC started to get a professional fire department. So the kind of leftover volunteers were housed at this engine site, at the firehouse, which was no longer operating. So they set up this as kind of their clubhouse, and they started to collect firehouse memorabilia as they were going on. As their ranks dwindled, they thought that they had a lot in common with AOI, collecting DC history, preserving DC history. And so once they became associate members and AOI started to look for some place to have a permanent location, the DC commissioners decided this would be a good pairing. So why don't we get AOI in there with the veteran volunteers, And then once their numbers peter out, there are only about 13 of them left at this time, AOI would take over the building. So because this was a government building, it had to go through an act of Congress to allow AOI to be in the firehouse. So it got approved by the government, it got approved by AOI, it got approved by Congress, and in 1911, AOI moved in. They had their first open house on July 4th, which was a traditional gathering time for AOI. 1911 at the firehouse. If you see the picture on the left, all of the veteran firemen are on the left, and AOI members are here on the right. You can tell they've got their fire hats on, if you can see a little bit closer. And this is a group of them with their apparatus, because when I say collecting equipment, they were collecting big equipment, as well as fire hats and fire buckets and documents that were connected to the fire department. And this is what it looked like inside the firehouse. This was a party that AOI had. So AOI collected money, renovated. They were very excited the fact that they built a game room. They had newspapers and magazines for people to come to read, to occupy their time. So it was like a clubhouse, and they retrofitted it with the kitchen so they could have banquets, and it would be a permanent home for them. Among the people who donated money for this was a 10-year-old boy who donated the first dollar he ever earned, and he became the AOI mascot because of that. I'm not sure how the 10-year-old made his first dollar, but he did turn it over. The tooth fairy, yes, I like that idea better than the labor, thinking about them on the labor. So their first event was July 4th, 1911, and their last was July 4th, 1956. Because it was around then when AOI was notified by the district commissioners that it was reclaiming the building so that it could sell the land for a development project. AOI they first started out by fighting it, and they'd get some legislation passed. Then they started negotiating, and finally they sold their rights and the building for $50,000, an agreement to dismantle, not destroy the firehouse, and storage space for their museum pieces, both for the firemen and what AOI had collected. So the idea was that they were going to dismantle this and move it to another site as yet to be determined. So they took it apart brick by brick, ended up with 3,200 bricks, took the entire steeple off in the belfry in one fell swoop. And as you can see, there were some members that came to watch all of that happening, and they went and put all of that into storage. And this is the building that was built in its place, because it was the IMF who wanted to expand and go into that space, and they were granted that land. So it was IMF who paid the AOI the $50,000. So this is a plaque that exists on the site. This is where it exists. You have to kind of look for it. But it does mention AOI, and it does have an image of the original engine house. So for the next 15 years or so, AOI pursued a lot of public and private options as to where it was going to land. Two that got the furthest along were both in Georgetown. One was the Old Stone House, which they actually had been negotiating with. AOI members agreed, Congress agreed, the D.C. government agreed, but the National Park Service pulled back at the last minute and said it wanted to open its own museum there. So that was canceled, that contract. And the second was on the upper left, which is 3210 M Street in Georgetown. That also was once a firehouse. It also served as Georgetown's town hall at one point. This got to the point where it also got through AOI, the district, and Congress, and in 1959, the building was conveyed to AOI. It was considered to be in such bad shape that it was more likely going to be more cost efficient to tear it down than to renovate it. So the drawing on the bottom left was introduced in 1960 as what they were going to replace that building with. But costs and kind of infighting among AOI trying to make these decisions ended up just putting it on hold for the next 16 years or so. In 1972, DC decided it wanted it back. AOI had done nothing with it, and so it was reclaiming it, and AOI battled the DC government for it, but it went all the way through Congress, got passed, and Nixon signed it, and they took the building back. Ironically, so that a businessman named John Zimmerman could open a firehouse museum, a fire museum in that spot that only lasted about a year. It closed in 1975. Around the 70s, AOI gave up trying to find a permanent headquarters and met at various places, and for many years at the Hyrick House. The Hyrick House had been given to the Historical Society, DC's Historical Society, in 1955. AOI considered it in 1956 as their headquarters. So it did have its legal address at Hyrick for many years. It also went to Bill Brown's house, past President Bill Brown's house, for several years in that Nicholas Kalin kind of tradition. And now our legal address is back at the Hyrick House under the Hyrick Foundation. Over the years, the equipment, the museum items were donated to various museums, including the Smithsonian and the Friendship Fire Association, some as recently as 2015. So this is still kind of an ongoing process. At the same time that AOI was dealing with this, AOI Inc., the African American sister organization to AOI, was also looking for a permanent home and raising money. They had been meeting in Oddfellows Hall for many decades, and they wanted to find a permanent place. They also gave up looking eventually and never found a permanent home. This is on 7th Street. The picture is from the late 60s, early 70s, I believe. Both of these struggles, these organizations, illustrate for us the post-war downtown building boom that was occurring in the 50s and 60s, the shifting real estate and economic priorities of the city, going away from the homes in downtown DC, the row houses, and going into more agencies, federal buildings, and commercial development. And the firehouse. What happened to the firehouse? All of those 3,200 bricks and the belfry, we don't know. So I believe that Nelson spoke to some previous members. Pat knows?
Well, it might be right where the Francis Scott Key House is.
Exactly. There are a couple of houses in DC that were dismantled with the idea of relocating them, including the Francis Scott Key House, which used to sit by where the Key Bridge enters into Georgetown. And nobody knows what happened to that either. So there could be a couple of piles somewhere in storage that could be rebuilt. Carl, do you know?
Probably like everything else we've discarded, where we found the shepherd's statue that in the mud and mire over at Blue Place.
And the shepherd's, yeah, I'm guessing it is still somewhere. So if anybody wants to take this on, talking about podcasts, you have a mystery podcast, you wanna go and try to go around to the different storage spots? And look for the belfry. It's big. It's got to be. You find the bricks. Yes. See, we nominate you to now start. You've got it. So we have bounced around a lot, which is also why we are so glad to be here. I think one of the most elegant and hospitable places that we have had the good fortune to be able to have lunches at. So we always thank the Whitmore House because this is just a wonderful place for us to be. So thank you. Thank you for that as well. A few quick things to keep in mind as you go about between now and our next lunch. Of course, the Cherry Blossom Festival that is ongoing. You can go to their website, nationalcherryblossomfestival.org, and find out about their different events. I do believe that peak bloom is supposed to be end of March, first week of April. So you should be able to catch at least a little bit. Go to the Kite Festival at the very least if it's not 2 degrees outside. There is an Ask a DC Native Live event where there are going to be two teams of DC natives who answer trivia about DC, which could be kind of interesting. So that is at the Strand, DC, on March 24th. I'm not sure I would be good at that, but yes, the 24th, we'll talk about it. That is sponsored by the 51st, and since it's sponsored by the 51st, I just wanted to give you a quick rundown for anybody who is looking for a non-Washington Post news source, since it doesn't cover local news as much anymore. There are some out there. So the 51st News it was reporters that came from WAMU, I believe, and founded their own site. And they're hiring more and more reporters, and they have fabulous coverage of local news. So that's 51st.news. The Washington Informer, Vera Abbott's, there you are, yes. So Vera Abbott's connection to the Washington Informer and her daughter Denise, who is the publisher and editor, executive editor at the Washington Informer. So you can also sign up for alerts from all of these if you want to get news coming to your phone or to your computer. The Washington Blade and the Washington City Paper, both independent news sources. So as you are looking, it is out there, and if you're looking, take a picture. This has the links. You can go then Google them at home if you need to. There also will be a Day of Remembrance for Emancipation Day, which is April 16th, always in D.C. This is for the Black Georgetown cemeteries that they go and they keep them up and they're trying to restore them. So that is going to be happening this weekend, Architecture and National Identity at Catholic University for anybody interested in architecture. And Andrea is going to tell us about a walking tour coming up this weekend.
Hi, I'm Andrea Seeger. I'm the co-author of that guidebook, 22 Walks in Washington That You Must Not Miss. And this week I'm doing, on Saturday from 10 to 12:30, I'm doing a collaborative walk and open house with Lincoln's Cottage. Doing a cooperative walk with one of their guides, sort of in the footsteps of the ghost of Lincoln is our theme. That you'll get some historic fun facts about Lincoln and that area, and then we'll convert over to what we think Lincoln might have thought about the emergence and the evolution and the changes in the neighborhood where he used to spend his summers. So please come join us. There are a few tickets left.
And I believe you can find the tickets at the lincolncottage.org, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
On there, or you can find her on Instagram as well, and our Instagram page as well, because we're promoting that on ours as well for it. Next month, we meet on April 16th, and this is part of our Legacy Business series. We have the Legacy Family series this year and our Legacy Business series. And we are going to have Stacy Lee Banks, who is the president and co-owner of Lee's Flower Shop on U Street. And this was established in 1910. She is third generation family owner of this business, and she's going to come and talk about her family and the business and U Street. So that is actually going to be on April 16th. So hopefully we will see you then. I'm going to turn it over to Nelson for trivia.
Okay, well, of course, in the news lately is the Declaration of Independence, 250th anniversary. And, of course, the Constitution is in the news every hour on the hour, 24/7. So there are copies back there of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Please take one. They're free. They're back on the mantelpiece. Help yourself, and take some time and read the Declaration of Independence. It's very interesting. Of course, you'll see that one of the big grievances was Parliament and the King were taxing us without our consent. Well, in D.C., we're still taxed without our consent. But it's not the king and parliament, it's Congress. Okay. Are there any people here today who have strong Irish roots? Okay. Oh, boy. Okay. Well, these people get the first crack at the question today. Okay? Unless you've won before, you might not want to pick up the prize. But a Irish immigrant came to this country when he was 22 years old. He was an architect, trained as an architect, settled in Charleston. And George Washington was taking a tour of the South, President Washington. Of course, Congress was in New York and then Philadelphia. We were just getting together to have a capital here. And he was introduced to this gentleman, and he was encouraged to submit plans for the design of the White House. There was a competition. There were 8 submissions. His was chosen. Who was this gentleman? You an Irishman? Irish woman? This is open first to the Irish people here.
Maxine is my father's mother, who was known as Catherine. Irish Cape in southwest Washington when I grew up. And she looked and lived the part. Devout Christian lady, but boy does she drink and curse.
God bless her.
And she passed it on to my aunt. Quick story, my wife didn't believe it. All of my 5 aunts were flaming redheads. They only dyed their hair when they went to high school because they got tired of fighting. And they wanted to be ladies.
So who's the architect?
There you are now.
Okay, back there. James Hoban, correct. Now, he also superintended the construction of the White House. He was given a contract to do that. Not only was his design chosen, but he built the White House. And of course, he had her build it a second time. The British burned it down in 1814. And he was also hired to reconstruct it. So he did it twice. He lived to be about 75. He spent 50 years of his 75 years living here in the District of Columbia. He's buried at Mount Olivet. He had 11 children. And some of his grandson and son went on to become very prominent lawyers here. His grandson well into the 20th century. Now, I wonder if there are any Hobans out there. I would think that by this time, the journalists would have tracked some down and said, what do you think about what's going on with the White House these days? So I'm going to give that challenge to our journalists here. One last assignment. And for the 200th anniversary of the laying of the cornerstone, I was asked to write up a piece about Hoban and his contributions here as a local citizen, which I did. Not only his contributions of what he built here. And it was published and actually distributed at the 200th anniversary. They had a big event at the White House. And I have a few copies of that. If we are Irish people here would like a copy, I'll be glad to give them a copy of this. Would you like one? Okay. Okay. I have about a half a dozen. I don't know if I have enough, but I'll pass around what I have.
They can take pictures with their iPhones.
Is Hoban Road named for him?
Pardon?
Hoban
Road?
Road. Is
Is that
Hoban
named
Road
for him?
named for James Hoban? Hoban Road, is it named for James?
Oh, yes. And he built a house, a very nice house in Southwest. And unfortunately, it was torn down by one of the Roosevelt urban renewal projects. So his house is gone, unfortunately. And I'd like to talk more about Hoban. Maybe we'll have some opportunity to do that sometimes. He really contributed a lot to here. He was on the city council for 30 years, a member of the elected city council here. He was an abolitionist and was quite involved in a lot of activities here in the city. And unfortunately, he didn't live well into the 1860s. He might have become a member of the Association of Oldest Inhabitants, but he didn't quite make it. Okay.
Thank you, sir. That was wonderful.
Okay.
Well, Cindy didn't need to introduce me, but I told her I'd tag team this with her to not only introduce our guest, but I have a little historic perspective that I'll mention. We're talking about ballrooms and Corinthian columns and Arc de Triomphes and parks and golf courses and everything. So as we're celebrating our 250th year coming up, normally most of you who know me know that in my 3 times retired mode, I'm usually up here in cargo pants and a short sleeve shirt or whatever. So I decided to wear sort of this traditional blue blazer and khaki pants today because I learned from one of the Washington Post style sections that this look is actually a carry forward from George Washington's army look of khaki colored breeches and a blue waistcoat. I didn't know that. So I said, well, I'll dust mine off, and this will be my recognition for the 250th, my contribution. So anyhow, again, welcome everybody to our program today. Now, I could stand up here and talk about our guest speaker, Chip Reid. Many of you will remember him on the CBS Evening News and maybe from his days at local stations here. I could sit here and tell you that he was born in Delaware and went to Vassar College and has a degree in psychology and went to Princeton University, a Master of Public Affairs. I could tell you he has a Juris Doctorate from Columbia Law School, that he was on the Senate Judiciary Committee 1982 through 86, and then he was general counsel to Joe Biden's 1988 presidential campaign. I could tell you he worked for ABC, he worked for WTTG, he's bouncing all over the place. WJLA, he went to NBC, he covered Al Gore's presidential campaign, he was based in Los Angeles at NBC for a number of years and spent 6 weeks embedded with U.S. Marines in the first second? Oh, the Iraq War. Okay, so not Kuwait, the Iraq War. So, and Chip has written a book about an account of that time that he did that. He began covering the Senate and the House of Representatives for NBC in 2004, but then he joined CBS News as a Capitol Hill correspondent and then went on to be a national correspondent. As he told us earlier, a national correspondent, he was given the choice of being the transportation correspondent, and he didn't want to cover plane crashes and the TSA and all that stuff. And actually, had you taken that job, you'd probably be in Phoenix and reporting on lasers shooting down drones and everything else. But all that stuff aside, I know Chip and his wife Nina, and Nina's the AOI member here. Nina has quite an interesting 4th generation history here in D.C. But every day on my 4-mile walks around the Palisades and Foxhall Village and all, I'd pass by this nice Victorian house down on MacArthur Boulevard, and occasionally in the summer, there'd be this couple out on their front porch in the swing sipping wine with these rescue dogs running around and all. So I struck up a conversation with them one day, mainly through Nina. But it was sort of like, oh, you're Chip Reid with CBS, blah, 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 blah. And this was just about the time that CBS Evening News was reimagining itself and relocating their evening news down to M Street from New York and brought Nora down and all this other stuff. So Chip and I had some, I'd call mine, because he couldn't say anything, caustic observations about some of the things that were happening at CBS News. And I regaled him with some stories about my crossing paths with William S. Paley and Friendly when they would come in and help us fundraise at WAMU in the late 60s, and also my close encounter and near-death experience with Walter Cronkite. I'm not going to go into that today. You can listen to that on my podcast. It's chapter 17. But fortunately, I'm here today to, that I survived that encounter. So I always run into Chip and Nina. We always gossip about what's going on the boulevard and why the bus stop was moved and how the rescue dogs are doing and what happened at CBS and what's happening at CBS. And so I thought it would be a lot of fun to have someone from news who's now retired, so can have an opinion, come up here and talk to us today about some of his reminiscences and about some of his experiences covering Washington as a national news reporter for CBS News. So if you please make welcome Chip Reid.
That was so thorough, I really have nothing to add. So, no, Bill, Nina and I just absolutely adore Bill, and he passes by our house 5 times a day usually, yes. No, I asked him.
Not a stalker.
I'm not sure of that. I might be the stalker, because I was telling his beautiful wife that we'll be sitting on the porch and he'll walk by and I'll get in the car to go run an errand and I'll see him up by Black Salt. And then on my way back, I'll see him over, wherever, in southeast Washington. I don't know. I thought he must walk 100 miles a day. I am told he only walks 5. I find that very hard to believe. I don't believe that at all. He walks, and he is a stalker. He is stalking me. So I'm not sure what the purpose is, but clearly he is stalking me. To get me here, that's right. That wasn't hard. He asked me, I said yes. It was. In fact, he asked me last fall. I thought, nobody ever asks me that far in advance to do something, so he wanted to nail it down. But he's a wonderful man, and now I know he has this fantastic wife. We are joined, you might have noticed, by my rather rambunctious wife, Nina, who it's not that she's opinionated, it's that she's hyper-opinionated. It's a whole different thing. It's a whole different thing. And she is very proud of her Irish roots. Her father, Frank from the O'Farrells, who became the Farrells when they came here, was a World War II hero, fought in Peleliu, and what's the other one? Peleliu and not Okinawa. Come on, give me a help. Come on. I can't, Okinawa and not Iwo Jima. But anyway, he was a highly decorated, one of the most decorated Marines. If you know the Marine Corps at all, one of his best friends was Chesty Puller. Anyway, I just want to say, we'll get back into that as we go, but I just want to say this group is so inspiring. I'm going to read your book and join you for a walk. I'm going to help you on the arch. I call it the Golden Arch because we know it's going to be gold, It's going to be a big double golden arches, yes. And probably will serve McDonald's cheeseburgers, exactly. Oh, I think he's into filet of fish now, so it's and if any of you have seen the South Park episode on the filet of fish thing, oh yes you do, but anyway. So I'm going to do a real quick, you already summarized my career pretty well, but I'm going to just give a little bit of the kind of the heart behind it. I went to law school because I wanted to be a civil rights lawyer. When I got out of law school, I didn't interview at law firms because I didn't want to be tempted by the money, which happens to so many idealistic people. They go to law school, they do a summer internship, they get treated like kings and queens, and all of a sudden they're on that sliding board down where they can't get off because they've bought a big house and they've bought big cars and they can't stop. So they end up spending their years as corporate lawyers, and so many of my friends did it, and they had nice careers, but they ended up hating their jobs, which is a sad thing. I'm not saying all corporate lawyers do, except for Abby Lowell, my good buddy Abby Lowell, but I don't know, yeah. But anyway, I wanted to be a civil rights lawyer, and I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, went to a public high school, and in 1972, when I was 17 years old, a guy named Joe Biden spoke at my high school. And I was so inspired by him. He was running for Senate for the first time. At the time, I was 5 years old. And no, I was 17 years old. And I was so inspired that I joined this group of students who went out and handed out literature for him on Saturdays. And 10 years later, when I got out of law school, and he was the top Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee and was responsible for helping to renew the Voting Rights Act, to renew the Fair Housing Act, to make Martin Luther King's birthday a national holiday, to defeat Ronald Reagan's choice for the Civil Rights Division, who believed, as so many Republicans do today, that the biggest civil rights problem is discrimination against white people. And we defeated a DuPont from Delaware for that position, which was one of my shining moments as a lawyer. I did that anyway. 10 years later, I got out, and because I had volunteered for him 10 years previously when I was in high school, and he often attributed his victory to his army of high school students who had handed out literature for him, he hired me straight out of law school for the best job that a civil rights lawyer could possibly have, working on civil rights legislation in the United States Senate. And it was a dream job. I did that for 4 years, absolutely loved it, although I will say he was a tough person to work for. I love Joe. I was in sync with him. But he's the only boss I've ever had, and maybe even the only person I've ever known who I was afraid of. Because if you got something wrong in a memo to him, you would hear about it. He was a absolute perfectionist, and if you weren't equally perfect in your work, he would let you know about it. But I love the man. I don't love what he did, and but anyway, I wish he had resigned. It said after 2 years he was going to resign and give the Democrats a chance to nominate somebody, but I'm still a little mad at him about that. But I love the man. So anyway, I was general counsel to his first presidential campaign, and when that campaign went down in a spectacular ball of flames, I decided to do something else with my life, and it's nice to talk to a crowd where people actually know who Ted Koppel is, right? Because I talk to a lot of crowds, and I say I had really become a big fan of Ted Koppel's Nightline, and I get a lot of, what? What's that? So, do you know who Walter Cronkite? What? No. So I decided that I had a conversation with my father one night, and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I didn't want to be a real lawyer. I certainly didn't want to go into private practice, and I had become a real news junkie. And he said, "So what's your dream job?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean dream job?" He said, "If you could have any job in the world, what would it be?" And I said, "Ted Koppel's job." And he said, "Well, then give it a try. You don't want to wait until you're 50 years old and then say, darn, I wish I had given that a try." So I quit. I had briefly worked for a law firm just to make ends meet. I quit that job, and I spent 6 months looking for a job in the TV news business. And it took me, I had just enough money to last 6 months. I was down to my last jar of peanut butter, and I got a part-time job covering hearings on Capitol Hill for ABC News, where Ted Koppel worked. And I actually had an interview with him to get the job. It was like, the gods were working for me at that point. Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that, baby. Come on. Am I really going to tell my wife that was better than sex? No. Yeah. Yeah. By the way, this is a dual performance. You get 2 for the price of 1. So. No, there's no such thing as that with you, Nina. So anyway, I got the job at CBS News. It was a part-time fill-in job while people were out on the campaign trail, the ones who were still in the campaign after Biden had dropped out. So they had some temporary openings, and that was my foot in the door. And I spent 33 years in the business and absolutely loved it. It was, as Bill mentioned, after I had covered the White House as the chief White House correspondent for CBS News, I spent the last 10 years in the business with my favorite beat of all, which was no beat at all. I had freedom to pick my own stories, and I created my own beat. It was kids, pets, seniors, vets, and ordinary people doing extraordinary things. I just did some stories that I still get chills thinking about that I had the honor to do. I did a story on a gentleman living in a nursing home outside of Philadelphia who was 102 years old, and his much, much, much younger cohort, who was a mere 88, put out their first jazz album. at 102 and 88. That's the kind of stories. I did another story with a man who was well into his 90s, who had retired as a carpenter, and after he retired, he spent the rest of his life making for dogs that couldn't use their back legs, little little carts to get around. I just did so many. What I like to say is I covered everything from war to goat cuddling, and I'm going to prove that in just a moment. In fact, we may as well go to that now. Why don't we show, this first one is not me covering war. I did cover the Iraq War. I was embedded for 6 weeks with the Marines, and I wrote a book, Battle Scars, and it was by far the most jaw-dropping, amazing story I covered in my 33 years in the business, and I came to respect these Marines so much, even though I don't have a military bone in my body. But it was an extraordinary experience. But aside from that, probably the most amazing experience I had ever had was covering President Obama during his first term, which was a problem because I, of course, had to disguise anything I felt. I liked the guy, let's face it, but I couldn't show that on the air. I absolutely couldn't show it on the air. So here is a little snippet of something that I did while I was covering President Obama. Thank you, Walter. Walter, right? Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Important to make clear to the American people what our strategy is, how long we expect it to take, how much it will cost. And so part of my job is to make very clear why this is important and what exactly we're going to be doing.
Secretary Gates has made clear he's furious about all the leaks. Yeah. And with it playing out on the front pages of the paper every day, some people have said it makes you look indecisive. Are you that angry about these leaks, and do you think it does make you look uncertain?
I think I'm probably angrier than Bob Gates about it. Partly because we have these deliberations in the Situation Room for a reason, because we are making decisions that are life and death, that affect how our troops are going to be able to operate in a theater of war. For people to be releasing information during the course of deliberations where we haven't made final decisions yet, I think is not appropriate.
Is it a firing offense?
Absolutely.
Today, the president is in Seoul, South Korea, only 30 miles from the border with North Korea, whose nuclear weapons program has been a key issue on this week-long trip to Asia.
The key from our perspective is to maintain international unity and keep ratcheting up the pressure.
He said that's also his strategy on Iran's nuclear weapons program. Asked how long he can keep repeating that for Iran time is running out, he issued an ultimatum.
I mean, I think we've been very clear that by the end of the year, if we have not seen progress, then we are going to be taking some very severe steps.
Asked about the stress of the job, the president denied reports that he's skipping meals and losing weight, but he admitted it's taking a toll.
My hair is getting gray, and it is the butt of a lot of jokes. You have a convergence of factors that have made this a difficult year, not so much for me, but for the American people. Absolutely that weighs on me. Whenever I visit Walter Reid or other military hospitals, I see the incredible sacrifices that our young men and women are making. That is a heavy weight, but it's an extraordinary privilege as well. I wouldn't trade my job for anything. The way we describe it in the White House is we'd like to land some of these big planes right now. Yeah, we've got a lot of traffic circling in the air, and the runway's a little congested.
Those big planes, as he calls them, are healthcare reform, economic recovery, and his Afghanistan plan, and he sounded more than a little impatient about getting them all safely on the ground soon. Chip Reid, CBS News, Seoul, South Korea.
That was...
Always my president!
Yeah, she's not applauding me, I assure you. See, that was, I covered him his first term, so that was...
Welcome to the Daily Show. My name is Jon Stewart. Man!
2010, that was 2009 to 2013 that I covered him, somewhere 2012, yeah, somewhere in there. I actually picked that one because that was actually a big piece of news. You probably slipped right by, but when I said to him, is leaking by the generals at the Pentagon a firing offense, and he said yes, the Pentagon just blew up. I mean, nobody had ever threatened to fire generals en masse, well, until the current president, at the Pentagon. And it was a gigantic news story after that. And at the time, as I said earlier, my opinions were irrelevant. How I felt about issues as a journalist was absolutely irrelevant, unless I was doing a story on golden retrievers or something, and then everybody knew that I was a dog lover, as you can see from my tie. But when I was covering politics or any kind of serious news, I made sure, to the best of my ability, that my own personal views did not show and were absolutely irrelevant. My job was to report the facts and let the people, I know that's the motto for Fox News, we report, you decide, but for me, it really was. I report, they decide. But that was, but covering him, now that I'm retired, I can say, God, I miss him. I really do. And I want to tell you a couple of fun stories that involve my rambunctious wife. And we did a couple of Christmas parties. Well, we did many where we met him. You stand in this long line, and you get up there, and Nina felt and still feels that he walked on water. And we got to the front of the line, and they announced CBS's Chip Reid and his wife, Nina. And as soon as the person said that and we walked up to them, she burst into tears. And he gave her a big hug, and it's okay, Nina, it's okay, don't worry about it, don't worry about it, it's okay. The best moment, but okay, fast forward a year later, we do the same thing. And we get to the front of the line, and before they even announce our names, we're next in line, and he sees us, and he goes, Nina! And she bursts into tears again. And and he hugged her, and this is no exaggeration, he then kissed the tears on her cheeks. And very sexy. And
Michelle was right there, by the way.
and she was, Michelle was, Nina, come here, I want to show what he did after that.
He hasn't touched me like this in years. Okay.
Who, Obama or me?
You.
Okay, so we're like this, and Obama's saying, I'm here, and you're here, and Obama's here, and he walked over and he went, and he kissed her, tears, and then he went like this. Chip, and it was at the time when something big, I don't remember what was going on at the time, but I was asking some very tough questions of him, as we all were, but I prided myself on asking really tough questions in the presidential briefings and in the daily briefings with the press secretary, because that's the only opportunity we get to hold their feet to the fire, really. So he grabbed Nina and he pulled her back like this, and he said, Chip, why can't you be more like her?
My dreams have been so happy.
Yeah, and there's a picture. We have pictures. We have many pictures of this. And it's with him with his arm around her and me over there. And Nina has titled the picture, I'm with him now. So anyway, I did that wonderful news thing for 33 years. And then I decided, I will confess that I didn't quit. I lost my job. CBS was in the beginning throes of. Is CBS News still on the air? I don't watch. I haven't seen it in years. I just don't. I just can't take it. It's what's happening there. So I was the first rather large domino to fall. My contract came up, and I was the only reporter in Washington who did not have a real beat. I had that beat, I said, kids, pets, seniors, vets, and ordinary people doing extraordinary things, which meant I got to do all these amazingly fun stories. But I did not have a beat that had to be covered. I didn't cover the Pentagon anymore, or the White House anymore, or the Hill anymore, or the State Department, or the Justice Department, or the Supreme Court. All things that I had covered in the past. So I was gone, and I was kind of relieved, actually, because I saw where CBS News was going. This was about 4 years ago, and the writing was on the wall. And I had always wanted to write a book. And, but, before I get to that, before I shift to the book, from kids, pets, seniors, and vets, and ordinary people doing extraordinary things. I said earlier that I got to cover everything from war to goat cuddling and everything in between. And most people say, you covered goat cuddling? And I say, yes. And let's take a look at goat cuddling.
A farmer's Facebook ad for help goes viral. The Virginia goat cheese farmer is looking for a few good volunteers to cuddle with baby goats.
Really? CBS News' Chip Reid explains why the job is really important.
At the Caramount Goat Cheese Farm in Southern Virginia, this is the time of year when baby goats run wild. And the handful of employees are run ragged. About 100 goats were born here in less than 2 weeks. Desperate for help, owner Gail Hobbs Page advertised for volunteer baby goat cuddlers. She wasn't expecting much. So far, they've had over 2,000 responses from all ages. One of Ashley Eccles' daughters found a match made in goat heaven.
What is your goat's name?
Stella.
And what's your name?
Stella.
Oh, that's special.
The volunteers are calling from as far away as California and Australia.
Are you surprised by the response?
Yes, and a little, we're dazzled and sometimes dazed by it.
She says there is a purpose to cuddling baby goats.
When they become milkers for the cheese operation, then they're easier to handle. If you just, if we didn't do this on some level, you couldn't get your hands on them. They'd just run away.
Chip Reid, CBS News, Esmond, Virginia.
Greg at Iowa.
I mean, am I the luckiest guy in the world? I got to interview President Obama. I got to do a story on goat cuddling, and I got to work for Joe Biden, who I love very much. I have had a very blessed and very lucky career. And it's I think all because I made that decision not to go the corporate law route, which 90% of my friends did. And I'm very glad that I did. Again, I'm not condemning anybody who does that. It just wasn't my thing, and I'm very glad that I stuck to my guns and did that. But then continuing, so those were my first and second careers. My lawyer career, which was 6 years, journalism, which was 33 years, and then writing the book, Battle Scars, which was, again, the most amazing story I ever covered, and other than being married to Nina, the most wild experience I had ever had, and writing the book. And now I'm in my fourth career, which is probably the one I enjoy day to day more than anything else I did. I volunteer for Lucky Dog Animal Rescue, which is based here in the Washington area, 2, 3, sometimes 4 days a week. It's just absolutely amazing. And the pay is good. I get a free bottle of water for a 9-hour day, and it's incredible. And with that, anything else I need to hit before I open it up for some questions, if there are any questions? No?
I think you did it all.
Yeah, okay. Anybody have some questions about, yes?
I get the first question because one of your stories that most impressed me locally was, and I'll let you tell it, was the riprap in the creek down in southern Virginia or something, and it was traced back to headstones to an African-American cemetery here in Washington.
Yeah, it was actually a story that was done by the Washington Post, and I will confess, in TV news, we get a lot of our stories from the New York Times and the Washington Post, and local stories from the Washington Post, but I don't feel badly about doing them, even though we're stealing them from people who already did the story, because they don't get to put the pictures and the actual interviews on camera. So we take that story and we give it life. And in this case, it was an amazing story for me to do because I'm so moved by all civil rights issues, and this was just a horrible thing that had happened over the years, that there was a graveyard in D.C. that was actually destroyed because they were putting in the Silver Spring metro station. And somehow or other, the headstones from that ended up as riprap along the river. I don't think it was the Potomac. Rappahannock River, I think it was. Rappahannock River. And so people's headstones with their names, I'm getting chills even thinking about it, with their names on them, all just lining the bank to keep somebody's farmland from being flooded. And it was an absolutely astounding story to do, and it was at the time when Governor Northam of Virginia was struggling with the civil rights issue, where after he was caught having posed in blackface in his yearbook, when I guess he was at which school? What was it? Medical school, right? Exactly. And so he was very eager to come on. So he went down there, and much to his credit, I interviewed him right there, standing next to, not on, next to these headstones. And that all led, I credit the Washington Post for getting it started, but that plus the story that I did, and I and my producer and my cameraman and my sound woman and the whole gang of us, that story that we put together led to, I don't actually know where the project is now, if they finished it, but they started taking those headstones and putting them where they belonged and trying to find where these people who had been buried, where they had taken their bodies. And we went to a current graveyard, cemetery, where they believe a lot of those people had been reburied without their headstones. So a long project was launched to try to put all this horribleness back to the way it had been. And thank you for mentioning that. That is.
I think a local church down there sort of took on the.
That's right. That's right. That's right. We went to the church. That's right.
The headstones to.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And it was a feel horrible and eventually feel good story, because they were actually doing the work of righting this horrendous wrong. And I just got to do so many stories like that over the years. I'm just so lucky that I had this career. Yes.
Did your story bring out who was responsible for it?
It was very vague, because it was a particular company that did it. And I don't remember the details right now, to tell you the truth. And I didn't do it as a piece of investigative journalism to find who the bad people were. I figured the Washington Post has the much more resources to do that than we did. The great thing about being a print journalist is you don't have to spend all your time on logistics and your money on logistics and cameras. I mean, they can assign 5 reporters to a story. We can never assign 5 reporters to a story. We get 1. And sometimes not 1, you just get a junior producer to go do all the initial work. But TV is limited because so much of the money and the time goes into the logistics of getting whatever the story is on camera. So that's interesting. You could probably look into it and see. There have probably been updates since I did the story, but I don't remember exactly where blame fell, and if whoever it was were people who were long dead who had made this happen. Yes?
You can read the story on the resources page of mappingsegregationdc.org. The story's been written a few times, but
yeah.
It was actually the cemetery owners contracted with,
right.
I forget their name.
Yeah.
A company, a guy who bought old African-American cemeteries that were in financial trouble, and the contract did not include moving the headstones.
Yeah, right.
And so he sold them for riprap.
Yeah.
What about bodies? Well, they disinterred and
supposedly there was a lot of belief that some of them were just left where they were, and the Silver Spring Metro was built over them.
Yeah, and they came across, when they were, but the metro station was later.
Yeah.
They didn't sell it for that. They sold, that guy hung on to the land until he could sell it, I guess, to the city.
Yeah, but there is still a belief that many of those bodies still lie beneath that station. Yeah.
But there's a whole story map that some AU students in the public history department did, and it's a story map, and you can find it on mappingsegregationdc.org.
Thank you for that.
It's an excellent story map with a whole lot of maps. Mapping Segregation in Washington, D.C. is a project I run that's documenting and mapping racially restricted housing, and it's ongoing.
Thank you for what you do. Seriously.
And,
if I were still working, I'd do a story on you. So.
Anyway, there's a website, and it's mappingsegregationdc.org, and the resources page has links to a whole bunch of different.
Have you done stories that you've done interviews for?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I can tell you, this is a story that news stations will jump on.
I mean, it's kind of old now. It's been going.
Well, it doesn't have to be that story. It's just what you do generally on mapping segregation. And
Well,
I mean, that's,
there have been, but not recently.
yeah, well,
We'll get on our podcast and then we'll roll that into a story.
great. And I know who to pitch it to at at a couple of stations.
Hi, Bill Rice. Very nice to watch you and your wife. Jeffrey Epstein, what's your take on him and the reporting? I am particularly impressed by the New York Times digging up and uncovering more and more. And is there any parallel in world history to Jeffrey Epstein?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. I mean, I'm sure if you went to some place like Nazi Germany or China when Mao was in power, you would find stories that are. But in this country, I can't. Right. If you go around the world, I'm sure you could find. I mean, Pol Pot. I mean, Lord have mercy in Cambodia. But in this country, I can't think of anything quite like this. And I really think we've only scratched the surface on this. There is just not a chance in the world that our current president would have fought this so hard if there wasn't much, much, much more to discover here. It's one of the few stories that makes me think I was still working. It makes me wish I was still working because I would love to be on it full time. But the New York Times, yes, who? Oh, CBS. I couldn't do it at CBS now. No, of course not, Mike. But I really think it's, if the Democrats do take over the House or the Senate, the amount of information is going to just explode. So.
Any comment on the New York Times or other?
I think the New York Times has done a fabulous job. There's also a gentleman named Stoltenberg. Are you familiar with him? He's a former journalist he is the guy who in the files discovered that there was this 15-year-old girl who had alleged that 13 to 15, we don't know, 13 to 15-year-old girl who had alleged that Donald Trump had sexually assaulted her and beat her in addition. Well, I don't want to go into those details because we don't know. But he is the person who first published this, and the New York Times and the Washington Post. Washington Post is, despite the Bezos factor, is still doing some fantastic reporting out there. But the New York Times is doing a great job. And a lot of, Crew is doing a great job of investigating. If you're familiar with them, they do. Public Citizen is doing some incredible work. But there's my feeling is that, no matter what happens to the news business, people in a democracy are still going to want to know. And there's always going to be some spigot that's going to be available for them to find that information. So I don't look at it as hopelessly as some people do. I think that a free press will always survive in a democracy. It just comes out in different ways.
I had a quick question about the trajectory of your career. I'm married to a journalist and a journalism professor who is a stickler for impartiality in how he does it. And I'm wondering, coming from a political background, where you were very political in your background, especially earlier when you went into journalism, did you encounter any flack for impartiality or presumptions of impartiality because of your background?
I did not, and that is because I felt that I was on a mission to prove myself. I was on a mission to prove that I could. I was a producer for the first 4 years, so I wasn't on camera. But still, my bosses were, I'm sure, looking at me a little bit askance because I had been an advocate from one side of the political spectrum. And every day I saw myself as needing to prove that I was somebody who could completely set aside my personal views. It's kind of like being a lawyer. I mean, when I was a lawyer, I remember being involved in things where I disagreed with what Joe Biden was doing, or the brief period I went to a law firm to make ends meet after I had left him. I had clients I didn't like, but I worked my butt off for them because that's your job. It's the same thing. You set your personal feelings aside and you do your job. And that is what I did as a journalist, and I really never got any guff. The one time I did get a lot of guff, the only time I ever remember getting a lot of criticism was during the Monica Lewinsky thing. You all know what the Monica Lewinsky thing is. If I was talking, oh baby, if I was talking to a college or high school group, they'd go, what? So it's refreshing to talk to people who actually know what I'm talking about here. But I used to get just dozens and dozens, that was before any kind of electronic communication really in any measurable way. So I used to get tons of letters in the mail, most of them form letters, accusing me of being a Clinton hater and a right-winger and all this kind of stuff, which I kind of took as a feather in my cap, really. If people thought that because I was reporting the actual news on what was happening with Bill Clinton, then I was doing, I thought I must be doing it right if people were criticizing me for doing something that, I mean, you know, again, I liked the guy, but I never let it show. But yes, I did. I knew that I had to convince people that I could report objectively and not be swayed by my own views. Unless, again, I was reporting on dogs, so. Or goats. Or goats. Yes, sir.
Chris, good afternoon. First of all, thank you for an excellent presentation. And when I hear you speak of your trajectory in the law profession, you remind me of a late friend, a gentleman by the name of Timothy May.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me take you away from all of this in that thinking about your interviewing Obama. In the 160 plus years of AOI, we have never had as a speaker a currently sitting or a past president to come before us and offer a thing. And I'm thinking well ahead of everything. Would you be willing to work with Cindy and others here to encourage Obama?
Of course.
I'm sorry I asked that, but problem solved, okay?
He liked her much more than he liked me. So. Okay. It's never dull in the Reid Black House, let me tell you. There's never a dull moment. You were?
Oh, I'm sorry, I am.
You are, yes. Yes, sir.
One quick question. The Fourth Estate seems to be hell-bent on being first with the story. Invariably, the first story is incorrect or it misses the mark.
Yeah.
And I see that across the landscape.
Yeah.
There's no historical perspective. There's no investigation. It's whatever the public relations office dishes out.
I agree with you 100%. It was always my motto, which was always, don't be first, be correct. And I really didn't care if when I was the White House correspondent for CBS, Jake Tapper was at ABC and Chuck Todd was at NBC, and they're both excellent reporters, but they were both really big on being first. I really didn't care. And I think my bosses didn't like that I didn't care about that. The important thing is the next day of reporting. It's not breaking the story, because 99% of the stories are going to come out anyway. The most important thing is not beating my competitors at the other networks and at the various newspapers. It's not being, oh, I broke that story. Well, it was going to come out the next day anyway. What's the big deal? And you broke that story and you didn't get it quite right. The most important thing is getting it right. And so I agree with you 100%. And I was one of the few people I knew at the White House who really didn't care about breaking a story that's going to come out anyway. Wait until you absolutely have the facts and then report it. You might not be first, but you'll have the right story.
That's what happened to Nick Sandman, that young man, 16 years old, and he was accused of all kinds of racism with that American Indian
I'm not familiar with that, or at least my brain has a hole in it right now, which is frequent. So.
Hi, I'd like to, on a more sober note, but I just wanted to make a comment. My Irish
Who am I
mother.
Oh, hi.
I'm sorry.
Who
My
are you?
Irish.
Who are you?
Oh,
You're Irish?
well, no, I'm not Irish. I'm American. No, my mother-in-law was from Dublin, Ireland. All my children are Irish citizens. Well, they're dual citizens. Anyhow, my mother-in-law had a saying that if that person liked me, I wouldn't like myself. And that's what I heard you saying about your integrity in reporting, so thank you.
Thank you. Nothing was more important to me than my integrity.
Well, it's wonderful to hear.
Nobody's going to remember that you were first on stories that were going to come out anyway, but they sure are going to remember whether you had integrity.
Right.
So.
But the question I have is, when I was a junior in high school, I lost a very, very dear friend in the Middle East War in '67, Ted Yates. He was my aunt's godson. And ever since, it was a traumatic event, obviously. He was shot in the head in Jerusalem, as well as the cameraman. Ever since then, I've been aware of the increasingly dangerous situations that reporters are in when they are reporting from a war site, war zone. And we have that right now. Is there anything that you learned or were taught or given guidance on as a reporter in a war zone, how to protect yourself? And is there any intelligence that comes along with that?
Well, I mean, you certainly can't protect yourself completely. When I was in Iraq, I went into the Iraq War accepting the fact that I might lose an arm or a leg, and I was okay with that. I mean, I'm not saying I wish it had happened, but I went there expecting that something like that could happen. Dying, that I didn't want. A brain injury, I did not want. But anything short of that, that's what you sign up for. You know you're going to be in a dangerous situation. But for me, it wasn't like what a lot of these guys are doing now. You look at Richard Engel and so many people out there who are in the line of fire all the time. I was surrounded by 1,000 well-armed, well-trained United States Marines. So, and there were times when bullets were flying over my head in addition to their heads. The Marine I knew best was killed about 30 feet away from me on the 4th or 5th day of the war. And it certainly was a dangerous situation at times. And one funny story about that, when we were about to cross the line from Kuwait into Iraq to go to Baghdad, Jim Mattis, General Jim Mattis, who is a wonderful, decent man who did this with Donald Trump when he was at the Pentagon, gave us our gung-ho, go-for-it speech to the people in the media. And he said, one thing you have to keep in mind, guys, is when can I say shit hits the fan? Oh, I just did. When the shit hits the fan, we can't help you. We're not there to protect you. We have a job to do. You're on your own, which turned out to be just a big fat lie, because these guys would throw me under the truck, and then they would go they were always watching out for me. And
you had a satellite phone.
Well, the satellite phone helped, but no, because they knew they had guns and I had a pen, and so they were and I didn't have training. So of course I always crawled out from under the truck, because you can't cover the story if you can't see it. So you've got to be willing to put yourself in danger. But they sure did go out of their way to keep baby Chip, who was about 25 years older than most of them. Well, a satellite phone. I had a satellite phone. And, of course, in war, there's no way you're communicating with your family back home. And so these guys would look at me when I was on the satellite phone communicating with London or New York or our temporary headquarters in Kuwait, about the story I was doing and sending the video back and my script. They would look at me like I was holding the Holy Grail. And they would walk by and just... He's got a phone. And so they started asking. One guy came to me one day and said, my grandfather was near death when I left, and I just really need to know if he's still alive and see if I can talk to him one more time. And so I let him use the satellite phone. And then a guy, one of his friends, heard that I had done that. And And he said, my wife is pregnant. She should be 9 months pregnant now. I really need to know if I really would like, could I just borrow your phone for 1 minute, find out if she's had the baby and if everything's okay. And the next day there was a line of 20 people waiting for my satellite phone. And this went on for a couple of days. And finally the commanding officer, just a wonderful man who retired as a 3-star general, Sam Mundy. His father had been the commandant of the Marine Corps back when. And he came to me and he said, Chip, I love what you're doing. It's really kind of you to do this and of NBC. And I said, they don't know I'm doing this. And he said, but we've got to have some order here because this is actually affecting our readiness. We can't have 25 or 30 or 40 guys standing in line waiting to use a phone when they're supposed to be at their battle stations. So he set up a plan, or one of his, actually it was the guy, well, anyway, somebody set up a plan for 5 guys a day, and then it turned into 10, then it turned into 15, but still, it was orderly, and you didn't have people waiting in line. They just knew that, or you had no more than 4 or 5 waiting in line. And when I got to Baghdad, of course, I discovered all of the media organizations were doing this. Everybody was letting the troops use their phones. How can you say no? How can you possibly say no? And I calculated afterwards, just a rough estimate of how many hours of phone time I had given them at NBC expense, and I calculated it was in dollars then, which is a lot more now. It was about $25,000 to $30,000 in phone charge, satellite phone charges to NBC for these guys to use my phone, and I. So.
And I'm sure none of them ever forgot.
Exactly. Oh, I'm still, well, because I wrote the book, for my book, I interviewed 42 of these Marines, and 20 years later, 19 years later, so the book could come out after 20 years, about how the war changed their lives. And there's a tremendous amount of PTSD, divorce, suicide, alcoholism, but there's also the core of the book is about how you can take PTSD and turn it into PTG, post-traumatic growth, if you deal with it, if you don't just bury it, like famously World War II and World War I and Civil War. I mean, PTSD has been with us as long as war has been with us, as long as trauma of any kind has been with us. And if you bury it, you're never gonna deal with it. But the theme of the book is that you can go through that long, dark tunnel, and at the other side is post-traumatic growth if you deal with it and don't just bury it and try to forget about it. Battle Scars, and it's not the only book out there called Battle Scars, but when I found out that somebody else, a couple of other books were titled Battle Scars, I said, I don't care. That's the perfect name for the book, because everybody came back with some form of battle scars. Fantastic.
But we're gonna have, we got one last. Pat's I'm gonna give you the last one, girl. Last one.
Well, I'd like to hear about your work with rescue dogs.
All right. Well, I absolutely love it. Lucky Dog Animal Rescue is an extraordinary organization. It was created by a woman named Mira Horowitz, whose father was Ted Kennedy's top healthcare advisor. So she was a Supreme Court law clerk, which means, if any of you are familiar with the legal profession, if you're a Supreme Court law clerk, you can do anything you want in the legal profession. You are set. And she worked in the Senate for a while. And she decided after about 5 years of being a lawyer, she didn't want to do that. She just wanted to rescue dogs. And so she started, somebody told me, another volunteer who has been working with her for the 17 years it's been around, said that in the beginning she would go to events where, rescue dog events, and she'd have a tub with water and a bar of soap for free dog washes, so that if you would volunteer for Lucky Dog Animal Rescue. And now it's an organization that finds homes for about between 2,500 and 3,000 dogs every year. Dogs, did I say dogs? Dogs and cats. About half cats, believe it or not. It's yay. And And it's been going on for 17 years, and it grows every year, and I just love it. I get up in the morning, or I leave the house at about 9 o'clock on Sunday. On Sundays, I worship at the Church of Dog, and I leave the house at about 9. I go and pick up dogs as far away as Manassas or Baltimore, and I bring them to an event at a PetSmart in the Washington area. Sometimes it's one dog, sometimes it's 6. Sometimes it's dogs and cats, although I don't really like to do that because sometimes some dogs will attack the cat crates, which is a horrible scene. So I have to have a barrier. But anyway, so I bring them from 12 to 3, usually 3:30. We have these events, and on any given Sunday, we adopt out anywhere from 40 to 80 dogs and cats. And I work at the contracts table, which is wonderful because that's where the joy is. That means they've already been approved, they've already chosen the dog or cat they want, and they come back to me, and the first thing I say to them when they come back to sit down with me, I say, "There's no smiling here." And they're all, and I go home, these muscles hurt by the end of 3 hours, 3.5 hours, from smiling for 3.5 hours.
He says he only does Sunday, then they call him on Monday, then, oh, Wednesday, Chip, can you go to Baltimore Airport and pick up 6 dogs in Puerto Rico? Oh, Thursday, oh, Chip, can you take a dog in case you go to the vet?
Yeah.
So it's really 5 days.
It's probably 4 days a week, but they're not full days. They're not 9-hour days like Sunday. But I love every minute of it. Absolutely love every minute of it.
Well, there was a president who said, "If you want a friend in Washington, get a dog."
That's right. That is exactly right, and that was Harry S. Truman. You're absolutely right. What'd you say?
I said, you win a can of Senate beer for knowing that. That was good, that was good. I want to thank you, as is per our tradition, we have a certificate to thank you. And we will also ask people to thank you so much for coming to us, and any donations to the Lucky Dog animal shelters, and many animal shelters are overflowing right now.
We
So if
actually
you're
don't
interested.
have- just so you know, we don't have a shelter. What we have is, it's a foster-based rescue. All of these dogs come in, and 90% of them go to fosters all over the world. We have hundreds of people who foster our dogs and cats. And then they bring them to the events, or I pick them up and take them to the events, and lots of other drivers. Where was I going with that? Uh-oh.
Just that they're not in a kennel.
Yeah.
They're not in
and
a
then
kennel.
some of them, and then local boarding facilities for the ones we don't have enough fosters for, they take them in for virtually nothing. They volunteer to take them in because it's good publicity for them to be saying, "I'm working with Lucky Dog Animal Rescue." So anyway.
I think it's safe to say that if you look on our social media, there will be information on the Lucky Dog Animal Rescue coming very, very shortly. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you for all of you. And hopefully we will see you next month. Stay safe out there and enjoy the cherry blossoms.
Can I get a picture with
Sure. Yes,
you and
with Bill.
With the three of, no,
Yep.
you two,
Oh.
you two.